Welcome to the Pozcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host,
Rhona Pierce, live from Unleash US in Las Vegas. Welcome everyone to the Pozcast. I'm Rhona Pierce, guest hosting here live from the boardroom. Thank you, Fountain, for sponsoring this episode. And I'm so excited for today's conversation because I'm here with Matt Alder, who is, I'll let him introduce himself.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm Matt Alder. I'm probably best known as the host of the Recruiting Future podcast, which I've been hosting for 10 years. But in the last few months, I've also been hosting the Alder Hour with you as an amazing co-host. So we've done a lot of talking and shows together. So looking forward to the conversation.
I'm looking forward to turning the mic around and asking questions this time.
It's always nice to be the one answering rather than the one asking, I think.
So you do, first of all, amazing Recruiting Future podcast. 10 years, that is a lot, and that's impressive because most people don't podcast that long.
Yeah.
So from all of the work that you do, what's been the most provocative or challenging idea that you've explored recently?
So it's something that probably started 2 years ago with an interview where we talked about there are going to be no more recruiters. So that was the premise. There were going to be no more recruiters. And 2 years ago, that just seemed like a fanciful thing to say, but it kind of revisited that topic time and time again. And every time we revisit it, there's kind of more of a consensus that's the kind of case or things are moving. So recently, I sort of put an article up on LinkedIn, kind of sort of summarizing all of this stuff, and it was really sort of looking at what the implications of AI really are on our sector. And a lot of the conversation tends to be very sort of shallow, and it is that whole argument about, we'll always need recruiters, we don't need recruiters. And it doesn't really get into the depths of it. And when you get into the depths of it, you kind of look at what AI can do. And actually, a lot of the activities that we do in recruiting, we talk about them being automated by AI, but then it's kind of like, actually, do we need to do this at all? Does AI actually change recruiting so much that the things that we hold dear and enjoy doing and have always done, what if they didn't exist anymore? So, and I put that out, and 2 years ago, I think it would have created this storm of protest, but I couldn't find anyone who disagreed with me, which I was, people disagreed on some of the nuances, but broadly everyone was in agreement. And I thought that's a real shift that from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, for sure. I think because people are seeing it and living it. And I'm sure for you, it's different because you're always talking about the future and looking ahead. But a lot of people are in the day-to-day in here. I think what really resonated, at least with me from your article, was everyone's talking about it. Like you said, recruiters are going away, everything's going away. And your perspective was, okay, does AI really need to do this? Are these even things that we're supposed to be doing in the first place?
Yeah.
I think that is a very fresh perspective that people probably weren't thinking about. But going back a little to your work as a futurist,
yes.
How is that when you're foreseeing these things? For lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And people are giving that pushback. How do you navigate that, on a personal level?
So I think the thing about it is that, no one can really predict the future. But what I've learned over the last few years is that there are structures and processes that help you create scenarios about what the future might look like. So in some ways, I always want pushback because what I'm doing is I'm just building alternate scenarios about what might happen based on trends, based on forces, economic forces, and all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of it's theoretical in some respects, but also it's about creating a vision that you kind of drive towards. And I like it when people push back and argue with me because it helps me sharpen my thinking. And you have to have a mindset where, and I think this is the biggest challenge for everyone in our industry at the moment, you have to have a mindset where what you believed yesterday might not be true tomorrow, and that you can change your mind you can change your mind with like no mental consequences. It's just like, okay, well, I now think this, and because things have moved on, I've got more information and I've thought about it. And I think that that's a very difficult thing to do if you're in a sort of day-to-day job and that kind of stuff. So I like it when people push back, and I think that I always listen to, even if I disagree with someone's perspective, I'm really interested into why they think like that, and can I learn something from the way that they think? Is there something that I've missed? Do they have a point? So yeah, it's just I think when you do this kind of thing, you just can't be defensive. You have to sort of take on all perspectives. And I think probably 10 years ago, I've been much more gung-ho and defensive and that sort of stuff. And I will stand by some of the things I say if I have solid evidence that I think they're going to happen. But I'm always open to debate. And we don't have enough debate around these kind of things.
How did you get interested in doing this type of work?
So I started working in recruitment marketing in 1999. Yes, I'm very old. And before that, I'd been really interested in, like, the internet was kind of starting. I'd been really interested in the internet. I had an internet job, and I got a recruitment marketing job, but from an internet perspective. So the internet was just coming into recruitment marketing, and I was really lucky to be able to get this job with no real experience or qualifications for having it, but actually just go and kind of, explore it and change people's minds and things like that. And I think just going through that process of seeing how change happens, seeing how meeting people who had visions about what the internet would look like and how that sort of came about, I just kind of got really fascinated about what's next in our sector. And there was so much change back then. It was just trying to really sort of understand how it works. So I started writing a blog called Recruiting Futures. I just wrote a blog for a few years, putting my sort of thoughts around it out there. And there weren't many blogs around at the time, so lots of people read it. And I'd be really surprised to go into events and people would be like, "Oh, I read your blog." I was like, "Did you? Wow!" And then that sort of morphed into a podcast. And then I'm interested in the future, but I'm also interested in how people move forward into it and how they solve the challenges of the present. So with my podcast, I'm always looking for examples of how has this worked in practice? Who is doing this? Where are they moving towards? So I think if you just talk about the future from a theoretical perspective, then it's just kind of pointless. It doesn't mean things to people. So I'm always looking for stories of people who are like, "You know what? We embraced AI, and this is what we found. This is what didn't work. This is what did work." And yeah, just finding that type of content, I just find a fascinating thing to do. I mean, some people get fascinated by, have hobbies and things like that. I just like look for recruiting case studies.
The future. So that article that you wrote, going back to it a little, have you had further conversations with people about it? Is there more to explore in that topic, do you think?
Yeah, there definitely is. I think one of the things that has surprised me about it was it's the most read article I've ever written. So that surprised me. People have picked up on different aspects of it. So I think that there's probably 4 or 5 themes in there that need a bit more kind of exploration. But it was interesting because that sort of 2 or 3 week period, there were a lot of similar articles that people sort of, wrote. And I was talking to someone a minute ago who was saying, it's all just drama. It's all just like, this is, and it's almost like the next stage of it is to actually talk about, what does this mean? How does this happen? What do people need to do? What are the practical steps to do this? Because I think you can sort of stand there and say the end is nigh and it's all going to change. And it's just not helpful or useful unless you kind of find out how to make those changes. So to me, kind of moving forward, it's just like, right, so if this is where we're going, what's happening? What's happening already? What can TA people do to, really sort of make sure they've got a career in this moving forward? What do they need to learn? Where do they need to look? And I think that, to me is the next sort of thing that I'm doing with the podcast and some of the other stuff that I'm doing just to help model that way for people. And one of the things that I do is I always look outside the industry. So I look at what's going on in, marketing or finance, because what you find is a lot of the time they are much further ahead with AI and its implications than sometimes we are in HR. So I think that there's almost like a blueprint of the future that someone's already written that's out there that you can look at. So I think that's important as well. But I think it's just really important, like, how do we go on this journey, and how do we make sure that we make talent acquisition, or whatever it is, or whatever it's called, brilliant for everyone? Because I think that we can. There's the tools to do this, but there's also a darker future where that doesn't happen, and it just becomes worse than it already is. So yeah.
What would get us to that darker future?
Letting other people dictate what happens. So I think that there aren't enough conversations within enterprises that talent people are leading about the future. And I think what happens is things tend to come from the top down. People make decisions. They might see recruiting as a transactional cost center, just get rid of it, not think about what's next. So to me, it's like having that influence to say, do you know what, this could be so valuable for the organization in terms of everything that we do. Here's a pathway and a way to do it. And I think that's the way that gets us where we want to get to. Being defensive and, you can't do this, and it's not going to work. And I think that there is a gap at the moment that no one is really having that type of future of talent conversation with very senior people in organizations. I think it's just, there's a kind of a void of a conversation. And I think that if talent people can fill that and talk the right language, and I think we can get to a great place. But the danger is if that doesn't happen, then decisions get made about how talent acquisition works that don't have the context or see the value of it. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Hey everybody, Adam here from the Pozcast. Today's Pozcast is brought to you by the team at Fountain. Fountain is your full-service frontline workforce management platform. I have to tell you, Fountain's offerings are some of the most robust I've seen for any product in the space. They offer full solutions for hiring, managing, and retention. They are truly a one-stop shop focused on the frontline workforce. They also create informative content using their data. For example, they analyzed a bunch of data from their fast food chains and created a trend report you could download now on their website. They also have a new ebook out called Frontline Voices. There's a lot to dive into. Certainly check it out. And you could learn more at fountain.com, linked in the show notes. Thank you.
So going back to a more positive.
That was positive. I think it can happen.
I definitely agree with what you said. But like, you've been watching the talent acquisition space transform for over 20 years now. So like, how has your understanding of like workplace efficiency changed in the last like 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, it's interesting how much has still stayed the same. And, we have some of these great technologies, but actually, the way they're implemented or the way they're used just don't kind of bring the efficiencies that people think they should. However, we've moved on such a long way, and conversations happen now that just wouldn't have happened in the past about the way people work and where people work. And I think the kind of the remote working thing is fascinating to me, because if you listen to the noise, it's all these big finance and tech and consulting companies dragging people back to the office. Yeah. If you look at the stats, they tell a very different story about companies working in a hybrid fashion and just getting on with it, and really changing the way that we work. So I just think it's we're much more aware of humans, how humans work and what they do than perhaps we were a long time ago. I don't think 10 years ago we would be talking about wellness and psychological safety and all these kind of things as much as we do. And I think that we should probably talk about them a bit more, and do people actually take it seriously? But there's definitely, I think the way that people see work has changed, and I think technology has helped to do that and uncover aspects of it.
I like that you kind of bridged into my next topic without even knowing.
I haven't read the question.
Without even knowing. Maybe we've been working together too long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if you're comfortable, I'd love to hear about your experience with ADHD and work.
Yes.
And like, what misconceptions do you think people still have about neurodiversity when it comes to like efficiency at work?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. So for context, I got diagnosed with ADHD 2 years ago now, something like that. And suddenly my entire life made sense. And particularly just obsessively doing a podcast for 10 years, I was like, okay, now I get why I've done that. I think from a work perspective, there's just a lot of kind of not misinformation, but just misunderstanding of certain aspects of neurodiversity. And I think that a lot of it is just really simple things about people letting people just be the best at what they can be. And I think that one of the things that annoys me sometimes is, I suppose quite rightly, but there's a whole kind of narrative of neurodiverse people talking about neurodiversity, and they'll just play these massive positives like ADHD is this incredible superpower, and you can do all these brilliant things, and it's amazing. And it doesn't play the downsides of it, which are very challenging. It can be very challenging in a work environment. So first of all, I don't think there's a balanced conversation. It's either it's all bad or it's all good. And it's like, where's the nuance? I think the thing that really brings it home to me is the whole recruiting process. So I realized in the middle of a podcast conversation with someone else who had ADHD that in my career, before I started working for myself, I'd never got a job through a traditional interview process. So I think I had 5 or 6 jobs, and it was like, I was the runner-up who got the job because someone dropped out. And I got that job because it was a weird all-day assessment centre where I could just kind of be myself a bit more. I got that job because I knew someone who worked there. And then I was like, I probably didn't get 40 jobs because I couldn't get through the interview process. And a lot of that is anxiety and nerves and first impressions and eye contact. So eye contact is such a huge thing that people really value in business and recruitment. And you look at it, it's like, really? And if you have ADHD, eye contact is really hard. It's the thing about you can either have eye contact or I can listen to you. I can't do both because it's just not. It's a weird thing to explain. But it's just not natural. So if I'm having eye contact with you, I'm like, what do I? Straight away I forgot what I was saying because I was like, do I look away? What do I do? All that sort of stuff. But then you look back and go, okay, so people judge people on the basis of that in interviews. And it's like, why is that relevant? And I think that some of the accommodations that you can make for people who are neurodiverse in the recruitment process actually benefit everyone because you're thinking about what am I really judging this person on, their ability to do the job, not their ability to create a stunning first impression, because that is important in some jobs, but in most jobs it's not important. You work with people over time, you get to know them. It's like, if you're in sales or something like that, maybe it's different. So I think it's just it's just a lot of misinformation about what's actually going on, but also just some of these things are really simple, and I think they benefit everyone. And I saw someone did a poll on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, and it was about neurodiverse people want a different type of recruitment process. Do we think we should personalize the recruitment process for everyone? It just came back as this big no. It's like, why wouldn't you though? And it's like, that's not what people are saying. It's just like, want a bit of understanding of how it works. And again, I was judging some awards a few weeks ago, and there was this brilliant film which was showing someone who was neurodiverse turning up to an interview. And what they did is they just played the noise in their head as they were doing it. So they're going through interview, they were like, oh, look at this, here I am. I've got these socks on, what's going on here? Oh, I really hope, and it was all about the anxiety of, I really hope I can tell them about this. And they were really nice. But the judges were all like, oh yeah, I found that a bit annoying because I don't think it's realistic. And I was like,
that's my life.
That's my head. So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. I think that we could just do a better job.
It's interesting that people are framing it around like, do you think we should be personalizing the process and things like that? And to my thing is, why are we judging people based on how we act?
Yeah, exactly.
Why are we not focused on skills? And I know you're a big proponent of skills-based hiring. Yeah. Is that really the solution? Is that how we go back? So like if someone, all right, they want to do better as far as including neurodiverse people and like understanding them in their process. What's the first step? What should they really focus on?
I think you just need to really understand what someone's strengths are and how you how you kind of really appreciate that in a kind of a almost like a non-traditional way. It's like how do we really kind of get this out of people? Because the benefits that neurodiverse people can bring to the workforce is just tremendous. So, from kind of analyzing, I'm like, what is it about me where this really helps me? It's two things. So it's like if there's something I'm interested in, I'm just relentless at it, which is why I've been doing the podcast for 10 years, because I'm just like boom, boom, boom. It just goes on. But also, one of the things about ADHD is you have really advanced pattern matching skills. So you can see patterns in things that other people can't see, which is also weird because you're like, what? Why can't you see that? It's obvious. It's this, this, and this. And that just really helps me when I'm doing the future stuff, because I'm like, oh, right, okay, that goes there and that goes there. So it's just that everyone, and also everyone's brain is different.
Yes.
And it's just neurodiverse brains are just very different. And I think it's just understanding that everyone's brain is different, and what can they bring to your company, and how can you make them work in the best possible way. I think it's as simple and as complicated as that, if that makes sense.
All right. So I'm excited for this part because I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh, no. Okay.
I'm going to ask you
a
few questions. Just the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
What do you attribute your success to?
What I just said. I think just getting relentlessly focused on things, and just kind of just having that hyper focus on the right, managing to hyper focus on the right things. Basically, yeah.
What's one thing about you that people would be surprised to learn?
I am actually really introverted, basically. So at things like conferences, I've been talking a lot today, and we're doing that kind of stuff. But yes, I had to go and hide for 2 hours yesterday just to kind of get my conference energy back. So probably that. I think if you knew me really well, you'd know that. But just because I do lots of speaking and shouting and talking and arguing, people might not necessarily realize that.
Yeah. So what's one opinion that you hold about the future of work that even your peers think is too extreme?
Good question. Right. I think that we will get to a point where everyone in the world has access to every job in the world, and AI will facilitate that. So when I go and look for a job, my talent agent is looking at every single job in the entire world and applying for the best ones for me. And then my perfect job will just arrive, and I'll arrive as a perfect employee for someone. And I just think that to me is like the out there big picture. I don't quite know how it works, but when you say to people, I think you'll be able to apply for every job in the world, they're like, what are you talking about? So I might be mad, but I just think that's the context in which I'm working.
And we spoke today with another Matt, actually, who had, I'm like, now that I'm thinking about this, we need to introduce these two Matts, because his idea was kind of like, we would have a blockchain that has all of our skills and everything, and like people would tap into that, and like that would be how you would introduce yourself. And so it's like, I can see something.
Yeah, I think everyone will have a talent agent that just does their career for them, whatever careers look like when there are no jobs and the robots are taking over. But I think it just kind of makes perfect sense. It's just like, why would you, rather than looking for jobs, rather than this kind of really disjointed thing, it's like, why don't we just have an agent that goes and talks to other agents and just does all that stuff in the background, and then we can focus on that sort of stuff. So that's that.
I love that. That's what a lot of job seekers think that recruiters do.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, that's the trouble. People think that we're already there, and we're not.
We're absolutely not there.
At all. Yeah.
So I've enjoyed this conversation a lot. Where can listeners connect with you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is the best place to find me. You can find my podcasts wherever you listen to your podcasts, or if you go to recruitmentfuture.com, there is 300 hours of content and 3 million words of transcripts if you want to look for it. And of course, you can find me talking to you every Monday afternoon on the Alder Hour.
It's amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show, Matt.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the Pozcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepozcast.com.